Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic podcast.
I'm back.
A few days ago, I actually saw a video by a supposed ex-Muslim. His name was Reese.
Who?
He made a video claiming that Islam is a racist religion.
So go back to sleep. So,
And when I saw his video, I realized that actually his video seems very familiar. Then I remember I actually watched another video by David Wood on that exact same topic, and lo and behold, it was the exact same video.
what?
So this guy, this ex-Muslim, he literally copied another video by David Wood. He literally copied David Wood's video word for word. Here, just check it out.
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali.
Clay was a white man's name.
Clay is a white man's name.
Muhammad were names for his people.
Muhammad, that is the name of his people.
This is Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi, the 34th grandson of Muhammad.
His name is Muhammad al-Yaqubi. He is the 34th grandson of the Prophet Muhammad.
Muhammad's white.
The Prophet Muhammad was white.
Damn. Like, damn. Damn. Okay, stop copying me.
You guys can clearly see this is straight up plagiarism. So let's see what he says, and then I'll make my response, inshallah.
Why don't you like to be called Clay anymore? No, Clay was not my name. Once we follow, believe, hear, understand the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and come into knowledge of ourselves, then we want to be called after names of our people, which are names that fit us black people. And Clay was a white man's name, was a slave name. And I'm no longer Clay, I'm no longer a slave, so now Muhammad Ali.
In this clip, Ali says that he no longer wants to be called Cassius Clay because Clay is a white man's name. Instead, he prefers to go by the name of Muhammad Ali because, according to him, that is the name of his people. Unfortunately, for the likes of Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, they have been misinformed, and here's why. When we think of the Prophet Muhammad, it's easy to assume that he was more of a dark-skinned man, being of Arabian descent himself.
He's saying that Muhammad Ali changed his name to Muhammad because he thought, according to him, that Prophet Muhammad was actually black. But again, this is a straw man argument fallacy. There is nothing in that clip or anywhere in Muhammad Ali's biography that even hints that the reason he changed his name is because Prophet Muhammad was black. And that has nothing to do with anything. So on Quora, someone actually asked the question as to why Muhammad Ali changed his name. And someone actually made a response, and it was a very interesting response. So I'm gonna quote him, and this is what he said. Ali was an intelligent man and was well aware that Cassius Clay, the politician, was a noted abolitionist. But as Ali explained at length in his autobiography, his desire to change his name had nothing to do with Cassius Clay as a person or an abolitionist. It had to do with his desire to free himself of one of the vestiges of slavery. Slaves brought to America were stripped of their names, of their identity, and given a name by their master. As Ali said in the greatest My Own Story, he desired to free himself of a name which was given to his ancestors, whether they wanted it or not, after their own names were taken from them. Ali said it did not matter that Cassius Clay was a very good man. He certainly knew and acknowledged that. What mattered was that his African ancestors had their name taken away and were given names in slavery. He wanted to reclaim his identity and give himself a name untainted by that heritage. So basically, in the past, when slaves were brought to America, their names and identity were taken from them. So he did this as a way to kind of reject that notion, as a symbolic way of rejecting that notion. It's about him making the choice to take a name for himself. This has nothing to do with the Prophet being black.
But take a look at the way in which even his closest companions described him. Sahih Muslim 43. Al-Jurayri reported, I said to Abu at-Tufail, did you see Allah's messenger? He said, yes, he had a white, handsome face.
You make me laugh sometimes, you know.
Also, the Prophet ﷺ was not white. But here, he's committing the cherry-picking fallacy. He's only quoting evidences where the companions of the Prophet talked about him and said that he had a white complexion or a light brown skin, and he's completely ignoring hadiths or evidences that show that actually the Prophet was not white. For example, if you read hadith in Sahih Bukhari 3548, it actually describes what the Prophet looked like. It says the following. The chapter heading is a description of the Prophet ﷺ. It was narrated by Anas. Allah's Messenger ﷺ was neither very tall nor short, neither absolutely white nor deep brown. His hair was neither curly nor lank. Allah sent him as an apostle when he was 40 years old. Afterwards, he resides in Mecca for 10 years and Medina for 10 more years. When Allah took him unto him, there was scarcely 20 white hairs in his head and beard. So here, this clearly says that Allah's Messenger ﷺ was neither very tall nor short, neither absolutely white nor deep brown. Okay, so he's something in the middle. He's more like a light brown person, right? Again, they're talking about from the perspective of an Arab, right? From the perspective of an Arab, of course, they're not saying that he is white like a Caucasian person. They're saying that he is light brown. And that's exactly what the companion is saying. He's saying that he was neither white, but he wasn't deep brown either. He was somewhere in the middle. He wasn't white, in other words.
This man right here, his name is Muhammad al-Yaqubbi. Why is he important? He is the 34th grandson of the Prophet Muhammad.
Oh my God!
Okay, so the Prophet Muhammad was white.
He's committing the fallacy of inconsistency. For example, there's an article that I found on one of the African newspapers, and it talks about two descendants of the Prophet, and both of these two descendants were actually black. It says the following: their names are Idrus Musin, who's 30-year-old, and Ahmed Musin, who's 28-years old. Right? These are all, and they're both the descendant of the Prophet. They're black. So if this is really the case, that anyone who has a white descendant means that person was white, then doesn't it also follow that anyone who has a black descendant, then that means that that person was black? But of course, it doesn't follow like that. Just because you have a descendant that is black or white does not mean that your ancestor also had that exact same race, right? Because the thing is that races change. For example, if I marry a black woman, or if I marry an Asian, chances are the child that I have will not look like me, right? Then if they marry another Asian, then that grandchild will not look like me either. So the races changes like this, okay? So just because he has like a descendant that is white, or he has a descendant that is black, that has nothing to do with his race, okay? Whether he was white or black, okay? It doesn't follow, right? I mean, like, how can you be this stupid and make arguments like this? Like, who are you fooling?
Allah's messenger said, "You should listen to and obey your ruler, even if he was an Ethiopian black slave whose head looks like a raisin." The Prophet said, "Listen and obey your chief, even if an Ethiopian whose head is like a raisin were made your chief."
Okay, so this is a very common argument, rubbish argument that you hear Islamophobes make all the time. They'll quote this hadith where it says that, you should not listen to this, you should listen to your leader, even if it's like a slave, right? Ethiopian slave who has a raisin head. What this idiot failed to realize is that they don't quote the full hadith. So basically, the full hadith is about, about listening to your leader, even if the leader is cruel, right? That's the point that the hadith is trying to bring. The Prophet ﷺ had many companions that were actually black. And what's interesting is that if this is really the case, that, he considered black people and insulted them using words like raisin head, then you would imagine that he would call his black companions as raisin heads, right? But when you look at the hadith tradition, you will never find, even in a single instance, where he ever called his black companions as raisin heads. Never. What this shows is that this title of raisin head has nothing to do with race. It's in Jamia Tirmidhi 3816. It says, narrated Umar, that the Messenger of Allah sent an army and put Usama bin Zaid in charge of them. So the people contested his leadership. So the Prophet said, if you contested his leadership, then you did contest the leadership of his father before him. And indeed, by Allah, he was certainly fit for leadership. And he was the most beloved of people to me. And this one is among the most beloved of people to me after. So, in case you guys don't know, Usama bin Zaid was a black teenager. He was black. So basically, his mother was, I believe, was Abyssinian. And his father was Arab. So what's interesting is that in this hadith, what's happening is that Prophet ﷺ put Usama bin Zaid, who's literally a black teenager, in charge of the military, right? And people didn't like that because they didn't want a black person to be in charge of the military. But the Prophet ﷺ is literally rebuking them by saying that if you're taking issues with this, then you're taking issues with his father's leadership. So he literally He literally put a black teenager as heads of state, okay, as head of his military, right? Which is unheard of, which is unthinkable, right? In an Arab society like this. So I love how this idiot completely ignores hadiths like this. So again, like, Reese, why don't you quote this hadith? And then he says, oh, like, Prophet ﷺ did not advocate for social change. He did. He did advocate for social change for like 1400 years ago. I mean, can you show me one example of something like this, of Jesus doing something like this for black people? No, you'll never see something like this. So yes, the Prophet ﷺ did advocate for social change. He did advocate for black people to be in charge of, to be put in position of power. But regardless, anyway, the point is that, again, listen to how the Prophet ﷺ is talking about Osama bin Zaid. Not once did he ever call him a raisin head. As a matter of fact, you will never find one instance of him ever calling any of his black companions as raisin heads. Okay, I would like to see if such thing exists. It doesn't. So clearly, this shows that this has nothing to do with race. Okay, he was calling this leader as raisin head as some kind of analogy or some kind of metaphor, perhaps, because the leader was cruel. So maybe this is an analogy or a metaphor for cruel leaders, right? But either way, this doesn't have anything to do with race.
Salam everyone. This is the end of part 1 of my response to this guy. If you guys like the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and click bell icon for more. Also, inshallah, the next part will come out soon within this week. I originally wanted to release the whole thing at once, however it's nearly 40 minutes, so I think it's better this way. This way you guys have more content and I can take some time off due to my busy schedule. The next part will cover the controversial topic of slavery, so don't miss it, inshallah.